Hey y'all, and welcome back to Joey's Booked. Today is going to be my February wrap-up. So I have got a pretty big list of books for February. It was a little bit of a better reading month than January, but I am still struggling a little bit to get in some of the reads that I really want to. It started rocky, but we finally found a couple good books this month. So in the month of February, I believe I read 11 books, which was crazy to me last month. It's even crazier to me this month. According to my Storygraph, that means I've read 3,088 pages. And there was no manga this month, so that's even more ridiculous to me. That puts me at like 22 books, I think, for the year or something like that, which is really crazy for February. I've been going through all the stressful work season. I've got about another month of it. Phew, has it kept me disassociating myself. For videos this month, I did videos where I read banned books. So I read these 5 here for that video. You can go back and check it out. I met books that were for my 25 for 2025, which included Happiness Falls by Angie Kim and the beginning of the Witcher series, The Last Wish. So that now puts me at 4 of my 25 for 2025 books read. I also completed my next Stephen King book, so I met my 1 book a month with Stephen King. So this month was The Tommyknockers. And then I knocked 1 book off of my Book of the Month challenge, which was A Killing Cold by Kate Alice Marshall. Happiness Falls was a Book of the Month, but it did not count towards that challenge. And then my Buzzwordathon book, I don't have physically, I got it from the library, but it met both the cover challenge of things like In Skylines or In the Horizons, and it fit the title challenge, which I believe was Water Words, and that is Adrift in Currents, Clean and Clear by Shauna McGuire, which is the 10th book in the Wayward Children series. So I met a lot of my goals and kind of fit in everything I wanted to. I do have 1 book that I'll talk about first that is for an upcoming video, and that's going to be The Tommyknockers by Stephen King. I think I'm going to withhold my rating on this one. I probably rated on Goodreads, so I guess you can check there or something. But this was a very interesting read, but with me, hopefully, very soon having my Stephen King vlog where I read both this and Misery and my upcoming 2 Stephen King books for March. I don't want to talk about this one just yet because I don't remember how much I went into in the vlog, but I have some thoughts. And then I also had 1 unrated book, which may be my first time ever reviewing an unrated book. That would be Little House in the Big Woods by Laura Ingalls Wilder. This was a children's book. For some reason, they put middle grade on Storygraph, but this is definitely a children's book. And all my thoughts are in that banned books video, but I drew this on a random number generator, and in this we are following Laura Ingalls Wilder as a fictional kid and just her life growing up. In this case, in the Big Woods. This is part of the Little House on the Prairie series, or Little House series. And I didn't feel the right rating it because it is a children's book. However, I did see that there was some interesting content in it. It's a very much a character study under the guise in a kid's book. It was just growing up in the 1800s and things we did with our family and stuff like that. That's really about all I've got to say on it. If you want my full thoughts, you can go check out that other vlog. My first category is going to be books in between 1 to like 1.5 star kind of ratings. So the first book was also for my banned books vlog, unfortunately, and that was Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut. And this was kind of a sci-fi classic, dystopian almost. Not, I don't know if it's really dystopian. It was a war book where we are following Billy Pilgrim, and he is a survivor of the war. He's a veteran, and he's kind of going back and kind of exploring that, but he also thinks like he's had contact with aliens, and it's kind of his coping mechanism for dealing with the war. And it just felt so rambly. It didn't work for me. It wasn't my kind of weird, and it wasn't really a character study I enjoyed very much. Yet again, my full thoughts are in that Banned Books vlog. My other 1.5 star book this month, and possibly the worst book I've read so far this year, is going to be A Killing Cold by Kate Alice Marshall. In this, we are following Theo, or Theodora, and her boyfriend Connor, and they are going to see Connor's family at like these cabins that they own, and Connor's family is very rich. Now, Theo and Connor have just very recently gotten engaged after dating for like 6 months or less, and it's a really big deal that they are going to see his family, because normally they don't let anyone in. But when, and this is in the synopsis because I thought this was a twist, when Theo gets there, she finds a picture of her as a little girl with Connor's father, which is really weird because there's a very brief period of when she was a little kid that she does not remember. She knows that she was orphaned and then adopted by this other family, and she's got some trauma from that. And it just continues to take like that thriller approach. And I thought every twist in this was ridiculously predictable. It was not for me. I did not like the characters. I didn't care really about what was going on. And it was so much of, let me just tell you these things that are happening. It had very insta-love. It had just an obnoxious relationship that made no sense. It had very much, I have amnesia, and I'm just going to suddenly remember things because I showed up to a location like it's nothing. There were just so many things that just did not work for me, and I had to give it a 1.5 star. I forgot that I had a DNF in my vlog where I was reading Banned Books. I completely forgot I even attempted this book. I don't care if it's out of order, whatever. Because it would have been a 1 star had I read it, so it would have still fit. In Cold Blood by Truman Capote. I thought it was hilarious that I drew this for that vlog because a lot of my students at work were reading this, and I decided, I guess I'm going to try it anyways. I didn't care. It's true crime, but it was like a weird stance on true crime, and it's just constantly describing the people that live in a town. I got maybe 30, 50 pages, something like that into it, not very far. It's way too dense for what it is, and I just didn't care, and I had a feeling I wasn't going to like it, so it was technically a DNF. And now we're going to get into anything that fit the 2 to 2.5 category, and there's only one for this, which is also from my Banned Books vlog. And with 2.5 stars, we had the first volume of Mouse by Art Spiegelman. And in this, basically we are following Art, except a fictionalized version of him as a mouse, and he is basically interviewing his father over his time in Nazi Germany. It is kind of this graphic novel where all the Jewish people are depicted as mouse, and the Nazis are depicted as cats. And then there's some other people that are like pigs or something, that I guess are anyone else. And it's just kind of him interviewing it. And I wanted to love it because it was kind of autobiographical, and it was talking about these good topics, I guess, within Nazi stuff. I was already burnt out from Slaughterhouse-Five on the war stuff. And then so much of this graphic novel was these dense drawings of just 2 people talking. And so much of it was not even showing what they were talking about, and that's not what I want. I want to be told something. I want to be shown something. I don't want to be told it. And it didn't work for me fully, but I wanted to respect it for what it was. So I did end up giving it 2.5 stars. And then in the realm of 3 stars, I had one, and I think I originally gave it an exact 3 stars, but the more I've thought about it, I think I'm going to bump it up to kind of a 3.5 just because I enjoyed my time with it. And I don't know if this will have been reviewed yet by the time this came up, but I will have kind of like a mini review for this coming out soon. And that's going to be Revived by Barbara Avon. This was graciously sent to me by the author, so thank you. And just requested for review, and I decided to pick it up. It's a short novella that is kind of psychological. There's following this couple, and I can't remember their names, and I don't have it in front of me right now because I did read this digitally. Okay, so in this, Cassie and Steven, and they're a married couple, and partway through the story, they're already kind of struggling like with their own personal things, but then Steven is hit and killed by a car, but he only dies for like a minute or two and he's kind of brought back. But after this happens, some of these like psychological things start happening, and they start having to deal with like mental things they've had going on and some other like past traumas and things start coming back, and it's kind of them in a psychological thriller-y kind of way starting, or like horror even kind of way, starting to kind of navigate them. For something so short, I really enjoyed hearing like, or getting to know these characters a little bit, even though they weren't like likable characters, and I just had a good time with it. It was a quick kind of one-day read that wasn't super long, and it was a good time. So I did end up deciding kind of to bump it up. And even though it started out rocky this month, I am happy to say we've got a couple different things in the 4-star category. Now, unfortunately, I have yet to find my first 5-star of the year, and it's been 2 months, and I am not having it. So be expecting in March that we push a little harder to find one. And with that said, though, I think I have 4 4-star books and a 4.5. So to start out my 4 stars, we have Adrift with Currents Clean and Clear by Seanan McGuire. And this is the 10th book in the Wayward Children series, which is a portal fantasy about these kids, and they at some point go through these portals to escape whatever is going on in their lives. This is one of the most like inclusive kind of series I've ever read or seen, and she just did a really killer job with them in general. In this one, we are following Nadia, who has not been around since some of the earlier books, and we already have the ending of her story, because every Even book goes back usually and tells like a behind-the-scenes story of in a character's world or something like that, and every Odd book is like a quest with like the current cast. And basically all these children, after they go through like these portals or whatever, and when they come back to the real world, they go to Eleanor West's Home for Wayward Children. But anyways, we're following Nadia, who was born in Russia with like one arm, and then she is adopted by an American family who really kind of pressure her to get a prosthetic, and then she goes into this portal because she's obsessed with turtles, so there's kind of like this water world. She is what's considered a drowned girl, and it follows her story from there. I had to question if to give this one a 4-star or not, because this is on the lower end of Wayward Children books for me, which sucks because I loved the world. But I found the last couple books are really just not pushing the story as much as they are who is the character, and for them to be such short novellas, I want more of the world when they go into these worlds. Or even like the last one, which was a quest book, Mislaid in Parts Half Known, I think was the last one. Like, even though it was a questy one, like anywhere they went somewhere, they were barely there at all, and we didn't get to see much. So that was a little upsetting, but at the heart of the story and the inclusion and everything, I still love these and gave it 4 stars. Our last one from that video was Lord of the Flies by William Golding, and this one was such a fun time for me. I accidentally read this giant book in like one sitting. Now my book is a little bit bigger because it's a case book edition, which I love this cover. I don't know what it is. White covers have been hitting it for me lately, between this and the Witcher book I talked about at the beginning of this in my like stats. I don't know. I'm feeling them. I'm loving them. I also really want the Mistborn series in the white covers. That's besides the point. Lord of the Flies, we are following this group of boys who have crashed on an island, and they are kind of left on their own devices to survive, and alliances form, and different boys take different routes, and there's violence, and there's chaos, and them trying to structure things themselves as like teenagers, as they are just trying to survive from their plane crash. This is very much a classic that has inspired so many other books I've read, and I've been wanting to go back to the source material for a long time. I'm really happy I've read this. This was very progressive for like, in like modern kind of feel on a lot of the topics that are being touched for a book that was written, I don't know, what was this, 70s? 60s, 70s? I don't remember. Whenever it was published, it's older. Enough to be considered a classic, and I just had a really, really good time with this one. It's definitely 4 stars. And then my last book, which I just finished yesterday because I'm not going to probably get another one in by the end of tonight, was We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. And I was so burnt out after this banned books video. The fact that I read another classic this month is absolutely insane to me. I think I've read 5 classics this year. I think all of last year I read maybe 2. And this was another one that hit really well, which this and Lord of the Flies were ones that I already owned versus the ones that I got from the random number generator for my banned books vlog. So that probably explains why I'm enjoying them more. This is considered a horror classic. I have before read A Haunted in Hill House, which I read last year and also gave 4 stars. But in this one, we are following Merricat Blackwood, who is part of this rich family, but there is this rumor going around that her sister had poisoned the entire family, so the villagers really looked down on them. And Merricat now lives alone with her sister and her uncle. It really just kind of follows their life living in isolation from everyone and how that has affected their different mental states. The uncle seemingly has dementia or Alzheimer's, which I thought was really interesting to see depicted in like the 60s. And it's just kind of this like trippy character study almost, and there's something about Shirley Jackson's writing that just works for me. Is this the most amazing thing I've ever read? No. Did I just really enjoy it for some reason? Yeah, it's weird. It's a little wacky at times, especially with Merricat, because there seems to be something wrong. Or, like, the way that she is developing isn't quite right between the isolation and everything else going on. And there's some fun little twists and turns maybe along the way. So I really do recommend, if not this one, The Haunting in Hill House. I think they're both really fantastic books. And the artwork on this cover is so good. Another black and white cover that just works. My final 4 star for the month of February is Happiness Falls by Angie Kim. And I am so excited because this is one of my 25 for 2025 books that I have now finished. It's way behind me, but you can probably see the stack over here. It's starting to get a little shorter. And this was a chunky one. I did not expect to read this in 2 to 3 days. This is kind of a literary mystery where we are following Mia. I don't even remember how many times they said her name in the book. But we are following Mia and her family. And Mia is about 20. She has a twin brother. And then there's her parents and her younger brother Eugene, who has both autism and Angelman syndrome, which was really cool representation. But then one day Eugene and the dad are out on a walk or whatever, and the dad goes missing, and Eugene is found like wandering around the streets, and he's unable to communicate because of his diagnosis, and it really leads the family trying to figure out what happened to the dad. Like, did he leave? Did he ditch? Has he died? Like, where is he? There's no traces. There's hardly any evidence. And it really explores that, but it also explores the representation of growing up in a Korean American family a little bit. It really does touch on like the linguistics and stuff of being from an immigrant family. It touches on just Angelman syndrome and autism and being nonverbal. I really enjoyed this because of what it did. There was a bit, I thought some of the story I wanted a little more from. I think I wanted even more answers than I received in it. And there was some very sciencey, mathy stuff that kind of went over my head, because this is exploring happiness and how we quantify happiness and how we look at it and study it. And it's not what I necessarily want in fiction, but if you're a very sciencey person that enjoys casually reading that kind of thing, it's really going to work for you. I respect what it did. It just, that part, it's not my kind of read. But everything else worked so well for me within it. And I respect this book very much. And I'm really excited to check out Miracle Creek from the same author. And our final book of February, and another 25 for 2025 read, if you haven't figured out what I haven't talked about yet for my stacks, it's a 4.5 with The Last Wish, which is the first book of the Witcher series, and it is by, if I can pronounce his name right, Andrzej Spakowski. There's something about the DRZ in this man's name that, no matter how much I listen to it, I'm not going to get it right. But this is the first book in the Witcher series I am so happy to have finally gotten to. This is technically a book of short stories, and we follow Geralt of Rivia, who is a witcher, which in this fantasy world is like a monster hunter. And this has gone on to make a Netflix TV show with Henry Cavill. It has been a video game, which I really enjoyed, and how I was introduced to this franchise. It's just short stories kind of following this monster hunter, and it starts to set up where this will end up being I think it's a 7 or 8 book series now. I just love Geralt so much, and there was so much to be set up in this book. It really pretty closely follows the first season of the show, which is the only season I've seen. But there's something about Geralt, I just love the character. He's so morally gray. It's not a perfect book because there was some weird things in it, and I think it would have worked even better almost as a novel. It's such a good setup to the series. There is some gory things. There are some really interesting topics discussed that I wasn't fully expecting. I don't know, I love this world. I love all the monsters and the creatures and the, like, elves, and I don't know. It's done in a way I like. It fits for me. It's not going to be for everyone. I know there's some complaints on it with, like, some sexist stuff and stuff that comes in it. I don't know if I just read it too fast and some of it went over my head or what, but I think I missed some of that. Regardless, I love it. It was a really good time, and I highly recommend checking it out, and I cannot wait to get to book 2. So with that, that is everything that I read in February. That should be 11 books, not including the DNF, which is, I guess, 12 overall. I really have pushed my reading limits this year. I am really wanting to still look for that 5-star. So in March, we are really going to start pushing things that I want to read overall and things that I've been excited to get to. That's all coming here in the future. So thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, please make sure to like this video. You can subscribe down below. Just continue to check things out. I still am posting content on other forms of social media as well, which are all linked in my bio on YouTube. You can find me on things like Goodreads and Instagram and TikTok, Blue Sky. I feel like I'm forgetting something. It's in there. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time. Bye.